Hello and welcome to the Tifo Football podcast. I'm Joe Devine, and today I'm delighted to be joined by Samwise McTigy, Sam the Man, Large McSam, Sam Tie-Dye. Does anyone ever call you Sam Tie-Dye? No? How about
Tiger?
Has anyone ever call you Samwise?
No.
No? As in Samwise Gamgee?
I mean, not seriously.
Not seriously.
Yeah.
What about Sam... Sam Ties here. Sam Ties. I've got a bit carried away. Sam Ties here. Yeah. Also, joining us is John Le Carre Mackenzie. Or should we say John AAA A-levels Mackenzie, as we find out in today's episode. Good Lord. Good Lord, you're going to regret you said that. I hope you don't, though. Do you know what? I'm proud of you. Probably not as proud as your parents are, but I am proud of you for getting 3 A's in your A-levels. And then being here with
I'm
me.
so glad that this is technically the end of the podcast rather than the beginning.
Anyway, as Steve Hankey who's also here. Hi, Steve.
Hello.
Has written here.
How'd you do in your A-level, Steve?
2 A's and a B.
Oh dear, what a disappointment. What an embarrassment, Steve. A B, Steve. What was the B in?
English literature.
How can you get a B in English literature? There's no right answers.
We don't speak good.
Good Lord. That would be English language, Steve. Now I can see why you've got a B in English literature. Ba-boom.
Apparently my opinions on poetry were just too mediocre.
I can see that being the case. Now, as Steve's written here, when we started doing 2 episodes a week very recently, we promised that there would be some deep dives for certain episodes, special occasions. And today is one such occasion because I would say we do spend probably 75% of the episode unplanned. It was an unplanned deep dive, 75-80% of the episode talking about Aston Villa.
Around Aston Villa's wage to turnover ratio.
Yeah. Oh, you want me to keep...
I'm not even sure that's true.
No?
Technically, we were talking about Villa, but a lot of it was about buildings.
That's true.
A-Stone Villa.
Fire trucks.
No, you're absolutely right. As Steve has said here, well, firstly, we should mention that we've got Sam, partly because he's great, but also because he's an Aston Villa fan. He said some great stuff on today's episode. You know what? Sam helped me look at Villa in a different way. What about you, John?
Yeah, definitely. I'll never look at a Stone Villa ever again.
Well, indeed, that brings me to issue number 1 on the plan of the docket. What did we talk about today? Le Carre. Should Aston Villa actually be called Aston Big Stone Mansion? That was the first thing we addressed. That's what I mean when I say
it should be Aston Mansion, not Aston Big Stone Mansion.
A big.
No, because Aston's the place in Birmingham, right?
Right, but what we're doing, Steve, is a play on words. We're saying that...
John, Steve only got a B in English literature. You can't expect him to roll with all the creative punches, okay? It's okay he's written Aston Big Stone Mansion. It's okay, that's what he's written. Don't worry about it, Steve. Everything's fine. Now, John had an existential crisis during this episode while Sam was trying to explain Villa's bad start. I remember that. That was good fun.
Surely we've got to a point where me having an existential crisis is not docket worthy.
Is modern football too arithmetic? Or... arithmetic. I can't remember did I say right? Arithmetic?
Did I not say arithmetical?
I don't know. We played a game with John where he said words that none of us knew. How would the socialist structure of American sports work for football and or soccer? We do a mini draft. We talk about that. That was good fun. That wasn't really about Aston Villa. I can see what you're saying now, Sam.
None of it was about Villa.
Yeah, a lot of it wasn't about Villa. No, you're absolutely right. Is there a cooler public service job than being a firefighter? I don't know that there is.
And what's the worst one?
But there definitely are less cool ones. Right?
There are definitely less cool ones. Then we talk about Villa's struggles on the pitch. That's sort of just before we finish. And we also talk about the Ballon d'Or and why kids like it. Which footballer smells amazing? find out at the end, or by listening to Talk Sport. And
it's the only way we're getting to the end of this show, isn't it? By saying we've got this teaser for something right at the end. Do continue listening.
Yeah. I was also thinking, as I said, that if they're Talk Sport, we should be Talk Warwick Castle, right? That really should. We should have our own sort of. Yeah, we should find what that is. No Warwick Castle mentions on today's episode, but despite being so close, there was one.
Yeah. Can we?
There was one. There was definitely something. Yeah.
We talked about how Warwick Castle isn't in Birmingham.
Its proximity to Birmingham. It's in the West Midlands.
We should do a full show on Warwick Castle, though.
I'd absolutely love to.
We could definitely do that. I think it would be fun.
I think
maybe a Wednesday show.
It could be crossing the line. You know,
think?
It could be. Yeah, but let's consider it. Let's spend a lot of time planning it.
What we need to do is think of a way of talking about Warwick Castle in an entire episode, which is hung off something else football.
Hung off? Is that a new word I haven't heard?
Hung off.
Oh, hung off.
They're two very, very simple words.
Well, people keep telling me that there's a football team in Warwick. We could watch them.
They call Racing Club Warwick or something. Or
Racing de Club Warwick.
Something like that. And did Ben Foster start off there or something?
Yes, that's right.
It still rings a bell from the comments.
It came up in a separation game.
Racing Club Warwick
ago.
FC. They've got the badge has is it Pegasus, the horse that has wings?
Pegasus.
Yeah.
Oh, my old friend. Hercules steed, I think you'll find. Yeah.
Wow, established 1919.
No, Pegasus is much older than that, Steve. That's
It's a Tottenham-esque badge, that.
I'm actually not looking at it, but I'm enjoying the... Oh, yeah, that's mighty fine.
The Racers, they're called.
Oh, they've got a player called Josh McKenzie. That's what my brother's called.
Really?
Yeah.
Are you sure it's not your brother?
It's not my brother because they spelt his name wrong if it is.
Oh. Well, that's probably the only reason it's not, you know.
Townsend Meadow, Warwick is the name of their ground. That's a lovely name, isn't it?
Townsend Meadow.
Oh, tough place to go.
Imagine playing in a meadow.
No, it isn't. No, it isn't. It's a picnic.
We love playing Warwick, except that the grass is 8 inches tall.
They've got a player called Charlie Pye as well.
Charlie Pye. That's a very good name.
There's some very good names here. Archie Hamp.
Do you guys remember trying to play football in tall grass and how, like, even just kicking a football through tall grass, how like impossible it was? How tufts of grass would just fly out whenever you did a kick.
Really bad fields where there'll just be like a hole or like a lump, and you're just running along, and then suddenly the floor will disappear and you drop like.
Ankle-breaking spots,
unbelievable.
Yeah,
unbelievable.
Good Lord. Okay. Well, there you go. That's the episode, isn't it? You have fun, Sam?
Yes.
Yeah, Samwise Taiji. Yeah.
Ooh.
That's quite nice, actually. I like that.
Samlin Costa.
I think it's time to say Sam Tai. Time to say Sam Tai.
It's time to say Sam Tai.
Okay, let's end this. Come on.
It's Sam Tai. Sam Tai.
Oh, not
It's time to say Tam Tai.
Sam Tai. Anyway, Sam Tai's here. Well, where else to begin, of course, than with Aston Villa? I'm going to call them Aston Villa throughout the... Do you think that's okay? Is that going to upset people?
Many villas are made of stone.
That's true. In fact, most villas are made of stone.
I would argue, yes.
Because I would say you can't make a villa unless it's in a hot Mediterranean country, or just, in a hot country. I think it's okay to have a villa in any hot country. But they make them with stone, don't they? Because of the...
You're saying that Aston Villa shouldn't exist because... Aston, as far as I'm aware, is not a hot country.
It's not a hot country. No, I always think it sounds exotic, doesn't it? Have you ever heard when Americans are asked to pick a Premier League football team and they've never really watched soccer before? They always say Aston Villa sounds nice, because the impression that Villa gives.
I know a couple of Americans who support Villa.
Really?
For that reason.
Exactly for that reason.
Actually, I don't know. Actually,
Is Tom Hanks one of them?
Actually, that's no.
Do you know Tom Hanks?
I'm mates with Tom Hanks.
What about Randy Lerner? Are you friends with him?
No.
Tom Hanks is obsessed with the name Aston Villa.
Really?
He's obsessed with the it has an allure to him apparently, and there's because it's 5 letters and 5 letters, it has a symmetry. People talk about that quite a lot as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, also if you're not British and you don't know much about soccer, you've got two sort of very recognisable words there. One, Villa, of course, which brings to mind a lovely Spanish villa, and who doesn't like that? And the other, Aston, which brings to mind James Bond and cars and
None of these things are particularly American, though, are they?
No. But then they were, they're Great British export. I mean, a villa isn't a Great British export. Absolutely not. I don't know what I'm saying.
A villa, the only villa. I mean, I guess Villarreal is like technically Sevilla.
Basically, Unai Emery only manages villas.
But like presumably as what do you call it when it's a word that comes after another word?
Suffix.
A suffix.
It's kind of like that, but
the club
like
suffix.
A suffonym. Let's call
a suffonym.
It that. But is there any other team that goes by something Villa?
I sincerely doubt it.
Apart from maybe like a non-league side.
I don't know. Well, the AI overview on Google says Aston Villa are called Villa as a shortened name for the club, which was derived from the Villa Cross Wesleyan Chapel. The chapel was named after a large Georgian mansion called Aston Villa. So it was actually a villa.
Georgian, interesting.
That stood. Don't you bring up Georgia again? that stood in the Lozells district. The Lozells district of Birmingham.
He's looking at
Lozells.
Lozels. Lozels.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
And when the club's
Depends if you want to
founders,
sound posh, doesn't it?
members of the Chapel's cricket team, the club's founders adopted the name. They formed the football club in 1874. So yeah, I guess it is. It's named after a house,
after an actual villa.
Yeah. So yeah, I could dispute it. Yeah, absolutely. I don't think you can have a villa in Birmingham. I don't think that's.
So you think it should be called Aston Mansion?
Aston Mansion.
Villas aren't huge though, typically speaking.
No,
and
that's
mansions
true.
are huge.
Yeah.
So it'd be Aston Cottage.
Aston Cottage.
Kind of taken by Fulham.
Yeah. Aston Craven.
Aston Bungalow.
Aston Bungalow. That's a nice one. Yeah. Aston semi-detached.
Birmingham Bungalow. Nice one.
I have to say, I visited Birmingham recently for the first time.
You've never sounded more like David Livingstone in your life. I visited Birmingham.
I visited Birmingham recently, and I went there with a stereotype in mind. And I came back delightfully pleased. No, do you know? I thought. Listen, I didn't spend that long. I was only there for a couple of days. I saw a bit of the outskirts of Birmingham. I looked at both football stadiums from afar, and I went in the Bull Ring, which is the big shopping centre in the middle. I saw that big metal bull they made.
Yes.
Wow, that's an impressive big metal bull, isn't it?
One of the biggest.
And do you know what? I really enjoyed walking around the city of. But I had a great time in Birmingham. That's what I'm saying. I reckon it's an underrated city. Yeah, but you cannot have a villa in Birmingham. I will 100% stand behind that. Yeah,
I agree with all of this. I think it's straight into the underrated, and you can't have a villa there.
Yeah, great.
That's
John?
fine.
Totally agreed. Yeah, but
Steve,
people from London leaving.
Sorry, I was just trying to Google if there was a Roman villa in Aston, which is why it might be called Aston Villa.
No Warwick Castle in Birmingham, though, is there?
Have a castle.
Yeah.
That's near Birmingham.
It's not far from Birmingham.
It's not far at all. You could Aston Castle. Oh, come on now.
It's too grandiose.
Do you think?
It's too big. If mansion was too big, what's castle?
I think they've got lofty ambitions, as we're going to talk about today. They've got castle-sized ambitions. If only they had a protective moat around them, then Monchi could have just fallen into that instead of been sacked.
He wasn't sacked, but he would have been able to escape. He would not have been able to escape.
No.
So
usually moats are supposed to keep people out, but in this instance, ooh.
Sort of like a prison. A castle's become a prison.
I guess so.
Yeah.
Aston Prison.
And in many ways, I'm sure every castle eventually becomes a prison. Anyway, it's been a tough start to the season for Aston Villa, hasn't it? They only scored a goal fairly recently. I think for the first 3 game weeks, they hadn't scored any goals. Tough for them. Of course,
first 4, and then they got one in the cup.
Was it really? First 4? Oh, good Lord. Okay. Well, we know they finished 6th last season, missing out on the Champions League by goal difference alone in some very sad circumstances.
Goal difference alone.
They made it to the quarterfinals of the Champions League. They pushed eventual winners PSG all the way in that tie as well. They were pretty impressive in the tournament. Currently, though, they sit 18th, and they've scored 1 goal in 5 Premier League games. And as reported by Jacob Tanswell at The Athletic, Director of Football Monchi, as we've just spoken about, is leaving his role, not sacked, as I incorrectly stated a moment ago. He's leaving his role to be replaced by former Real Sociedad sporting director Roberto Olabe. Is it Olabe?
I think so.
Oleba, maybe. Yeah. Oleba.
Oleba?
I would say Oleba, but I could be wrong.
It's Olabe.
So, what the is going on? What do you think? Why has it gone so badly so far as a starting point? Why have they only scored 1 goal?
The attack is under severe reconstruction, and the entire team has felt a little bit undercooked to come into the season, unfortunately. The summer transfer window is probably the place to start here. A disastrous summer transfer window. The best grade you could possibly give it would be a D, and that would be generous. I think I saw some Fs and some F minuses.
What's the lowest mark in a transfer window?
It is completely up to you where you draw the line. I would say.
Could you get a U in a transfer window?
I think if you don't do any business, it's a U.
Is it?
Because it's an incomplete, right? You just didn't do anything.
I guess so. But like Liverpool barely did anything last season, right? And people wouldn't say that they had a terrible window.
I think if you don't do anything, then you can't have your window measured.
If you try to do things and you end up doing nothing, that's probably it.
Because what you're rating is the perception of what their window should be relative to what their window in actual fact was.
But isn't that's what the rating system of transfer windows is, right?
I don't know.
We're not saying actually if we grade it according to the specific, it's like within the context. I feel like this is better than that.
Sure. In which case, I think you could have a U.
Maybe.
Would that be like a did not participate?
I think so.
Yeah, maybe if you had a transfer ban, that's a U.
That's a U.
That's an NA, isn't it?
Then lowest is F.
Yeah,
I think you go F and then you skip down to U. I don't think you need to be messing with the G's and the H's.
What was the lowest letter you got in your final high school exams, your A levels?
I got a D.
Right. I got an E.
Well done.
Did you get an E? Did you even do A levels?
I did A levels.
Did you? Oh, yeah, you did, didn't you? Yeah, I was just checking. I can't remember because I know you did some at home, so I wasn't sure what the situation was with you.
I did my A levels at school.
At a school, yeah, okay. What was your lowest letter?
A.
You got all A's?
Yes.
For fuck's sake. I wish I hadn't started this conversation. Back to Villa's transfer window, yeah.
Yeah, well, Villa did not exactly have a John McKenzie of a summer, unfortunately, when it came to grades.
And look at me now.
I'm not surprised at all.
Look at me
for
now.
what it's worth. Not surprised at all. So the problem
What a failure my life has become.
was financial
I could be
control.
making money in the city right now.
Could you?
And here I am, sat at this table, listening to Sam talk about Georgia. Oh, dear me.
Would you like me to?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Push on.
That's fine. So
he's having an existential
he
breakdown.
really
That's
is.
fine,
Yeah, it's tough. So financial control, the problem for Villa.
What I could be working in if I'd have applied myself.
John could be the man applying these financial controls.
But as it is, I'm just talking about
Had
them.
he realised his potential.
Talking about whether or not U's exist in transfer windows.
When you put it that way, it really is kind of a failure for someone like you got a D and I got an E. That's why we're here. Triple A's. Good Lord. Anyway, what were you saying?
Right.
Oh, bad transfer window for Villa, wasn't it?
Very bad. Yeah. Very bad. Not going into the grades again. Very bad window. Not allowed to spend money, according to UEFA, was the big problem.
Right.
Big problem.
And was that because you were in European competition? Or was that because you had like PSR issues? I don't really understand.
Yeah, there's a big distinction. So Villa have been able to work around PSR with a few different things over the last couple of years, sort of selling out players in what UEFA have perceived to be swap deals, like Douglas Luiz to Juventus in return for 25 million euros, or what on the books 25 million euros and two players, but really it's 50 million, that sort of thing. Selling the women's team to yourself also is a great tactic these days. If you've got any assets, crack on. I would suggest to any football club, find a piece of land, buy it, build something on it, and then sell it to yourself. That would be a great way to get through and put some revenue on the books. I am absolutely certain that at least one club is doing that right now.
Right.
If you've got a car park somewhere on the books, sell it to yourself, because the Premier League allow it, right? And the clubs have gone through a revote process, and this is all fine. They had the opportunity to remove this from someone's Arsenal, and basically they voted against it, so it's all good. But UEFA, they take a very dim view of selling yourself a hotel or a women's team or a car park.
Yeah.
So UEFA have taken quite a lot of Aston Villa's revenue over the last couple of years out of their calculations. So while the Premier League allow you to do these things, UEFA take a very dim view. They've taken issue with the Douglas Luiz deal to Juventus, which has cost about 50 million off the books. They've taken issue with what they believe is a swap deal with Chelsea, Omari Kellyman and Ian Matson, for some inflated fees. So these things are considered from UEFA. And I can't remember the exact number, but it was reported last season that Villa's wage to turnover ratio was in the 90%. It was too high. I saw varying figures. I think Jacob Tanswell reported 91, but it's in that area.
Mm-hmm.
And UEFA's regulations are it needs to be below ideally 60, but at a push 70.
Yeah.
So Villa are in a position here where they're trying to compete with the top 5 and 6 richest and best clubs in the league year on year on year. They're trying to re-qualify for the Champions League. And they're having to do so while cutting costs by around a quarter, which is quite a difficult position to straddle, isn't it? Improving while cutting costs. It's pretty tough.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, it wasn't that long ago that people didn't really consider Aston Villa one of the big teams. I think now we had this conversation relatively recently, John, the notion that maybe the big 6 is sort of starting to become the big 8, as much because of the upwards trajectory of Aston Villa and Newcastle as the downwards trajectory of Spurs and Manchester United in more recent seasons. But they've presumably, Villa, achieved that in part because they have spent money, which has presumably led to the situation that they're in now.
I mean, it's a vicious cycle, isn't it? If you want to reach the levels that these clubs are at the top of the table, then you have to spend money. And I guess revenue is everything. And so the teams who are successful are almost guaranteed to get more revenue because they're the teams that everyone supports. And so they can have failing. I mean, Manchester United finished 15th last season, and they've been able to spend over 200 million in transfers this summer. That's not the sort of thing that a team like Villa can do. Villa have to have on-field success all the time in order to generate revenue. That's the only way they're going to really be able to do it. Even if they do that through selling players, they have to have the success to get the players good enough. And we were talking before we went on air just about how you end up in these sort of vicious cycles because like you buy good players, and the players that you buy who are good end up being your best players and therefore the most valuable players that you have. So to be a manager of a club where you want to increase the value of your squad, what you actually have to do is raise the floor players' values, which I think is a tricky thing to do because a lot of the time those players will be useful. I think useful for you for very explicable tactical reasons. And so you don't want to bring in like a good young centre back, play them, and then immediately have to flip them for someone else. So I think the problem becomes that I don't know, that example was really bad actually. I'm going to say that again, but you don't want to bring in a player who's just sort of doing a very sort of standard water carrier job in the team and then have to move them out for not very much money when the option is you can sell Moussa Diaby and make money on him or
John Duran
or Louise, right?
Yeah.
Don't say David Luiz. It's not him. It's the other one.
Dougie
Luiz. But that's the thing, right? The reality is then you lose your best players because they're more valuable, or you play a style of football where you can at least I don't know try and raise the level of your lesser players. But then like what we doing in football if it just becomes a sort of arithmetic exercise where we're trying to
arithmetic. Wow!
Just had to throw in my
3 A's,
triple A behaviour. That
good lord! Does that just mean arithmetic?
Yeah, but it's
arithmetic.
It's a different version of the word. It's a different
I've genuinely never heard that word before.
Arithmetic.
Yeah.
What does that mean as opposed to numerical? It sounds like a scent.
I'm making the point that what you have to do then is just focus on like the small details and at what point should football clubs really be worrying about like slowly accruing value through making smart decisions rather than at the end of the day playing football that people want to turn up and watch, and it's tough.
Let's play a game. Here's
Georgia.
The game. This is the game now. You ready?
Yeah.
You have to say a word to me and to Sam that neither of us have heard before, right? But if it sounds too obscure and insane, then you lose. And if we've heard it, then you lose. You have to hit the perfect middle ground mark with a word that we can agree. And Sam and I will play on honor system. We'll agree that doesn't sound mental. That sounds like not so obscure. It's that perfect middle ground we're looking for. Okay, now go.
Well, I wanted to say anarthrous, which you definitely don't know what it means.
Is it related to the anus?
No, it's a grammatical term, which refers to words that don't take the article, right? So if you had a word, like a proper noun is You don't say the Joe Devine, do you?
I
You don't
do.
take.
My wife does.
Yeah, okay. Most people don't.
Hello, is that the Joe Devine?
Though.
Yes, it is. Hello.
It's funny that when you say it like that, you have to say the. You don't say the Joe Devine.
It's the emphasis. Is that the Joe Devine?
But because words like that don't take an article, they are technically anarthrous.
Sure.
There you go.
I definitely am an
Is that
arthurist.
too?
What do you think?
So the first one he said, arithmetic,
Yeah.
I thought he was just saying asthmatic.
Right.
And this one, I think he's just saying arthritis.
Right, I think he is as well.
Yeah.
But do we agree that that's not so outrageously obscure? It's on the edge, isn't it? It's pretty good though. You did quite a good job.
I think it's fine.
Yeah. Okay. One more. Come on. One more.
Another word.
Yeah.
In the meantime, anarthrous can also mean without distinct joints.
Oh.
So it is to do with arthritis.
There you go.
It's good with the English language, isn't it? You can always kind of work out sort of what's. I mean, not always.
I mean, if you really want to bend it to exactly what you want, it's perfect.
I'm struggling to think of any words now.
I've heard of all those words before, John. You lose
Fail.
the game. Fail. Okay. Hey, can I ask you a question? We'll come back to Villa briefly, but because we're talking about financial soccer football related issues here. So that just slipped out there. Sorry about that. I spent all my time talking to American people, so I keep saying I'm just so used to saying soccer now.
Soccer. It's
okay
an English term technically.
It is, yeah.
Hey.
My dad always called it soccer.
My dad also refers to it as soccer occasionally.
My family all do because they're from Ireland, where they call it soccer, of course.
My dad is half Irish. Yeah,
Right.
comes through his granddad. They just all call it soccer.
Yeah.
I love this big argument that English people have with Americans because everybody's wrong.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? Anyway, soccer, as it relates to the money, one of the things that I will admit, jealous of those core North American sports for is their draft system. I do think it's cool, and I find it sort of bemusing and odd. This is not an original observation, that American sports seem to be far more socialist in tone than football does, than global football does. Despite America being like a far more capitalist nation than most of the rest of the world, and I love the draft system. I think it's really fun that every year there is the same number of new players that are added to a thing. That the clubs or the teams that perform most poorly the year before get first pick in theory, or get a bigger chance at first pick for some of the new best players. And you can see based on the teams that do win over a period of time that there is a cyclical rotational element to this. I find that really fun. And then when we start talking about PSR or these UEFA imposed financial rules, I understand why they're there on the one hand to prevent things like Portsmouth happening again. I totally understand that we shouldn't allow owners who have no real ties to a football club to come in, take over, spend money unsustainably, then leave the club in a position that is far worse than it was before. Totally understand that. And I respect the rules for that purpose. However,
there's also the other end of the scale there too, right? Which
exactly.
is you wouldn't want a nation state to come in and buy a club and then just spend literally unlimited amounts of money and completely warp the competition. So it works at both ends of the scale.
And in most of those American sports, you have like salary caps. So like some of them are a bit more flexible. Like in the NBA, there's what they call a luxury tax, where you can go over the top of the tax, but you have to pay an insane amount of money to do so.
Which then gets redistributed through to the other teams, right? They go under, I think.
I don't know, but that would be cool if it does.
I think there's...
In the NFL, it's a hard cap where you end up just not being able to keep players on the books or whatever. So they do have systems in place to allow for this, but I just think it would be so great if the Premier League had a draft. I think it would be really fun.
Okay,
personally.
Joe. Time for a game.
Yeah.
Wolves, the bottom of the league.
Yeah.
Every player is a free agent. You have to sign a player to a 5-year deal when you draft them. Who do you sign?
Every existing Premier League player.
Right now is a free agent, released, unattached. You are Wolves because you are bottom. You get first pick. Every draft pick is a 5-year deal.
Martin Ødegaard.
That's your first pick?
I think so.
Okay.
I think so.
There you go.
Maybe Erling Haaland.
Martin Ødegaard now plays for Wolves.
Well, this is so the thing is, the way I think it should work, I've got two ideas. One is that every 7 years, this I think would make it even more fun. You think about the exclusivity of the World Cup, how it's only every 4 years. Every 7 years, every football player is immediately released from their contract, and you have a big draft of every existing Premier League.
The world's
player.
draft.
Yeah, no, just in the Premier League.
Okay.
Every Premier League team player is immediately released from their contract, and then you have a draft for everyone every 7 years. But every year in the summer, when there are new players from outside the Premier League that want to join, they, in the same way that they do with the NBA, for example, they have like players from college, players from the G League, players from the Euro League that enter the draft. You would have the same thing where, that's like how you supplement the teams over the course of an annual basis. And then you get rid of the January transfer window.
It would be great. I mean, there'd be a lot of kids moving schools very suddenly. Think of the family impact on life here. But
we don't have like the college university sports infrastructure to support that kind of thing. I don't know. Maybe though that kind of system would result in the championship, for example, suddenly having like loads of great young players who, and let's say if you weren't allowed to join the Premier League until you were 20, then like the championship would suddenly become an incredible league to watch of just these amazing young players who wanted to enter the Premier League draft. That would be one of the doorways through which to do it. I don't know, like there's obviously a million problems with what I'm saying. I understand that. But
it's also not very socialist.
Crazy.
I'm not trying to make it socialist. I'm trying to make it more interesting, more fun.
It's tough for Lamine Yamal here. He's actually still 2 years away from playing a top-level game, despite being arguably the best player in the world.
No, maybe 19. I don't know. Wouldn't it be fun if the Premier League had a draft? If you could work out the kinks?
I think if you could make, I mean, the beauty of American sport is it's much more competitive, right? Because you have that constant churn of the best players into different teams. But for sure, it would be more fun. But I guess it comes at the cost of like pro rel. They don't have promotion relegation, so you have to keep it a closed school, closed whatever.
It doesn't work if you go international, basically, does it? That's the American sports draft, because they have the infrastructure, but also it's all very US centric.
Yeah.
And there's not going to be like a NFL starting in somewhere else where it's suddenly just going to pull all of the players.
But what if you did it with the top 5 leagues in Europe and they were all sort of banded together? If it was a Super League thing, like what if there was a Super League and then you had a draft?
But you need a college system for this to work, right? And that's where it sort of falls down, unless you just make it academy football. And I don't know. I just don't think that football clubs could operate in that kind of unfair environment.
I don't think
this
will
is
ever
unfair. I want to be able to do whatever I want, which is fair.
I don't think it will ever happen, but I do like to think about it.
Joe, just to save you from the commenters, you're not advocating for a Super League. You're just speculating that that's how you would have to. Or I mean, I'll
be honest. I'm pretty neutral on Super League. I really am. Like, there's a part of me that wants to see it happen, just because I'm curious what would happen and how it would work. I think the lack of promotion and relegation would probably make it quite boring quite quickly. I think it would only work if there was promotion and relegation involved. And it's easy for me to say because I'm not like hugely emotionally attached to a team that would participate. But I do know. There's also a part of me that thinks it would be quite fun to watch like whatever the top, English football division was, not including those top 6.
I'm a big fan of anything where people think if you just add the word super in front of something, it just changes things completely.
Anyway, to answer your question, I'm not advocating for anything. No, I don't feel disgust at the notion that there could be a Super League, because I already feel disgust at the notion that there is a Premier League. I mean, I think it's bad, but I also worry about the fact that in another, you already see the impact of the Premier League being far richer than the other European leagues.
The Premier League is the Super League.
The Premier League is the Super League. So, but
here we are covering it.
Yeah. So I don't know. I feel like to not acknowledge that would be to like just be.
But
having
what you're saying
closed.
is that you want to see more like equality in the football leagues, and I think
I want it to be
totally
more
fine.
competitive. I want there to be more different teams that win. I think Leicester being only the 6th team to win the Premier League since it started, since 1992, is a bad thing. And I mean, just to clarify, I like that Leicester won. I want there to be more Leicesters. I want there to be more opportunity I want Aston Villa to be able to have an actual chance of winning the Premier League, which right now, it doesn't feel like that could ever feasibly be the case, does it? It feels as though, the top of the pyramid of ambition for Aston Villa is to be a regular top 4 team.
Yeah, I mean, if you are in the Champions League every year, you do start to build your revenue, and then you can have another conversation maybe 3 years down the line. But I think that probably drills into the crux of the matter, which is if you don't have the revenue streams available to you, then you're not going to be able to compete financially. So Villa would have to be perfect on the pitch for 5 years minimum in order to even have a chance at operating at Liverpool or Manchester City's level. That's not a criticism of the two clubs. They've built their stadiums, and they've built their fan bases, and they've built their revenue streams, and they've also, to be fair, done all that before the current rules have been quite so restrictive to clubs that have the ambitions of Aston Villa. I'm not criticising them for that either. They're just in the right place at the right time. And Villa are almost in the wrong place at the wrong time there, just a bit late to the party. But Villa spent 3 years messing around in the Championship when they should have been competing. Tottenham built a huge, amazing stadium with incredible matchday revenues and a go-karting track.
And beer that comes in from the bottom of the cup rather than the top.
Exactly, which creates a lot of mess on the concourse and some sticky feet when everyone just starts going boop with their finger at the bottom of it's really annoying. While this was happening, Villa were messing around in the Championship. Villa have got themselves to blame to a point here. And to bring us slightly back on topic as well, just ever so slightly.
Where did we go?
I don't know. Villa also spent very badly during the Jack Grealish sale period. So that was the window there to put £100 million worth of pure profit on the books for Jack Grealish. It gave Villa an incredible amount of financial flexibility.
It's like the Gareth Bale sale, Tottenham bringing 7 players in. Period
and they just kind of biffed it.
Who did they biff it on?
Well, it was the Steven Gerrard era. So it was all mostly pre-Monchi and pre Unai Emery. They spend the Grealish money on Danny Ings, Leon Bailey, and Emi Buendia. And then the chief executive at the time, Christian Perslow, did a video that he posted to the Villa website and said, in these 3 players, we feel we've identified the strengths of Jack Grealish, and we've been able to replicate him across the pitch.
Aggregate.
Very much Grealish in the aggregate, except unfortunately none of them were anywhere near as good.
Sure.
Although they only, I think, due to lots of different factors, but mostly injuries, I think the 3 of them only ever got on the pitch about 3 times together. Right. That's how flawed it all was.
Yeah.
So there's your sort of 100 million gone. And there's a couple more as well, like Diego Carlos signing and then tearing his Achilles in the second game and never being the same. That was 25 million and a big wage.
It's a bit unfortunate.
It's unlucky, yeah. But there was a focus on some proven players there. Dendoncker came in. Robin Olsen as a backup goalkeeper was on a pretty high wage despite being quite poor. So I feel like that possibly was the window for Villa to really accelerate, take that 100 million pure profit on the books for those 3 years and really go for it and nail those deals. And a lot of those deals went really wrong.
Yeah.
And so by the time Emery came in, Grealish's sale was falling out of the books. And so Villa's spend was suddenly way higher than their revenue because that 100 million was gone in that 3-year period. So then you're left with a lot of costs and not a lot to back it up, and a team that should be doing better, expecting to do better, but without a lot of financial wiggle room to actually do so.
Yeah.
But this is the point, isn't it? Is that
worth just adding before you carry on, John, that Steve's included. Jacob Tanswell wrote in July, club sources state Villa's wages to turnover costs are projected to be in the mid-80s, meaning they will have to remove further salaries from the books to fall below that.
Brought it down a bit.
Yeah.
By getting rid of 14 players this summer, they were able to reduce it by 10% or so.
Yeah, okay, fine.
I think the point of all of this is that if you want to actually step up in any kind of level, you have to be perfect all the way through. It's like when you read those articles in like the posh newspapers where it's like, here's how I bought my first house. And it's just always like ends up being my parents.
Say the line.
They bought...
I'm 28 and I live with my parents.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's the reality, right? It's like you talk about, okay, Villa, they did some bad things, they wasted some money, they had some advantages they didn't use. Manchester United do that almost every season. They misuse their advantage and they can buy some players who don't succeed and they end up moving them on somewhere else. And because they have that revenue already just coming in, it means that they're set to just retain their place in those top spots. So I think this is the reality of PSR, is that PSR does make the teams who are already there a little bit more safe.
Yeah.
And
this one trick that UEFA doesn't want you to know about.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, the arguments that we have about about Manchester City and Chelsea, seemingly getting around financial rules to essentially what they're trying to do is find a way of being able to spend more revenue than maybe the rules make possible, whatever, allegedly so. But what that has done is it has made the Premier League a more competitive league. I kind of find it funny how Premier League fans treat those kind of teams as though they cheated to get where they got, which, I'm not making a moral judgment either way on that, but it did have unintended consequences for these other clubs that is better. Like the Premier League is much richer all the way down because Man City and Chelsea have had those periods of success, and so it's sort of like a weird one for me.
Explain that again.
I'm just saying.
Why is the Premier League richer all the way down? Because of the
competitiveness of the top teams, which I don't think Chelsea and City would have been able to break into without this going around the side. So for me,
how does that result in it being richer all the way down?
Because now the TV revenue money goes up, and so the clubs at the bottom get more money, and which is why
it's more competitive.
Yeah, it's because, and it's now the league where everyone wants to be. So I think if you trace it all back, you can make the argument that if the Premier League really wanted the league to take off, they would get rid of PSR,
right,
and allow clubs to just spend however much money they want. Which again, that's not a reality that I want, but I just think it's a really murky moral sphere where essentially what you end up doing is in this sense ossifying certain teams in the top six.
Yeah, okay.
Ossifying,
yeah, pretty good.
Google that one.
And
is that like fossilizing?
Yeah, basically.
Just say fossilizing.
But ossifying sounds so much better.
Does sound.
Turn it into bone or bony tissue. Become rigid or fixed.
Become rigid or fixed.
Because as you know, an ossuary is it's a box of relics that usually contains bones.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's true. I think I might have just made that up.
Don't dob yourself in on the game.
Yeah, but the point I'm making is that it goes both ways, and it seems it's unfair that City and Chelsea could find ways of being able to spend more revenue than maybe Villa can now, because we're in a hyper aware period of financial fair play or whatever.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the fans who are like, well, that's super unfair. It's like, well, you're if you support a Premier League side, we've got teams like Bournemouth being able to outbid and outcompete for players with AC Milan now.
Bournemouth bought Porto striker when they lost Dominic Solanke.
Yeah, exactly. And
not a problem to them at all.
Super League.
These are the unintended consequences of, I think, City and Chelsea spending more money. It's a cash flow thing, right? But and I guess that it then comes down to, well, what do you want? You can, if we look at Villa and say this is really sad, they're not able to break into that top six. We're essentially saying that's PSR being a bad thing as well, right? So it kind of goes both ways. If Villa became good and started winning, would we start and found loopholes or whatever? Would we start saying, yeah, well, they only bought their way to the top? Probably. And that's it. It's the murky morals of PSR where you get good things coming out of it for fans, but also bad things coming out of it for fans, and you almost have to fall one way or the other depending on which club you support.
There is the perception is, I think, that Villa have spent a vast amount of money.
Is that the perception?
Yeah, I think I've seen people talking about that this week, off the back of Monchi departing. Off the back of the UEFA problems, I think I've seen journalists and pundits talking about Villa spending a lot of money, which is about half of it, I think. I just mentioned those names that were brought in under the Grealish money, and that period where Villa spent and the deals didn't work out. They certainly spent money during that period. In the last 2.5 years, the gross spend is still quite high, but the net spend is quite low. Right. So Villa have had to juggle players quite a lot, in, out, a lot in a way that like Chelsea do, for example. Chelsea's list of players in and players out is always astronomically long, and also the fees are the 300 million in, 300 million out. You're constantly generating that churn in order to make sure that you've got enough money coming in on the books so that you can spend money on the books. And so Villa have, John touched on it earlier, but Villa have bought some good players and for a lot of money in the last 2.5 years, but they're also mostly gone. Moussa Diaby was bought in and then got rid of after 1 year. John Duran, as soon as he hit stardom, gone because a big bid came in and Villa had to make the sale. Yeah. So I'd say actually Villa have been quite frugal on a net spend basis over the last couple of years.
That's interesting.
And the statistics are, let me just get them here. Net spend under Emery is about 50 million.
Wow.
It's actually not that high. And in
not
the
that high.
same period, Chelsea and United have hit 500 million plus
Net spend.
net spend.
Yeah.
I mean, they've just gone for it because they can, right?
Yeah.
Of course. So the conversation around Villa spending is effectively a 5-year conversation. It's 2.5 years, the most recent, under Emery and Monchi, where I think there's been a lot of firefighting and a lot of manoeuvring and a lot of the stuff that Monchi has done, like, how can you spend 38 million on Ian Maatsen? Well, you can do that if Omari Kellerman has joined the reciprocating club for 19 million, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Amadou Onana was a lot of money. He was, yeah. Everton also bought a player off Villa. There's a lot of okay, my back's against the wall here. How do I generate enough revenue here while also making sure that I have enough players in this squad?
Yeah.
And Monchi, in a way, has been quite clever in that a lot of the players that he has procured in those scenarios have been good young players that he can give to a very good coach and say, can you make this player better?
Yeah.
And Unai Emery is a person who can get more out of Amadou Onana, who can take Ian Maatsen's game to the next level. So Villa have had to, I don't like this phrase, but I'm going to say it anyway, box very clever over the last 2.5 years. Keep the net spend down. Make sure the squad is full of players that Emery can use. Stay competitive in a top 6 area while also cutting costs and wages and making sure you don't overspend. It's really hard. I think this job that Monchi has had to do in the last 2 years is genuinely so difficult.
I think on top of that as well, if you want to bump up your revenue, you have to get Champions League football.
Yeah.
But to get Champions League football comes at a cost because you have to get better players, you have to get a bigger squad, and then you make the league more difficult for you as well, right? So you end up with this situation that Villa have been in, Newcastle have been in, where you end up oscillating between Champions League and not.
And they were very
season.
unfortunate not to get Champions League last season. Right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's what
if
it
they
comes
had
down
got
to.
that and they had all the extra revenue, I mean, would we be having a different conversation now? Right?
100%. Yeah,
Its goal difference is the margin.
The value of the Champions League versus the value of the Europa League is pretty significant in its difference. Yeah.
There's a Bill Bailey's quote that he does in one of his sets where he talks about the Guinness Book of Records, the record for having the most number of pegs on your face.
Yeah.
And he's like, all you have to do to beat that is just have a bigger face.
Sure.
And I use this example a lot of modern football because I feel as though in modern football now we're just at a point where if you want to win that record, you just have to have a bigger face.
Yeah.
And there comes a point at which if all of the football boils down to this club is able to spend money at a higher rate than these other clubs, then of course they're always going to win. And there's a few differentiating teams at the top where they have the same advantages. And I think that's what we're talking about, right? It's it seems very unfair for Villa to have to be perfect all the time. And if they up once, that's it. That's like one bad window, and it's like, okay, you're now back at the start of the queue. Whereas there's other clubs where they can just constantly fail and fail and fail. And
I can't believe you swore in that. John, you're better than that, man. Sorry. You're 3 A's. You know so many words. You try it again, but don't say fuck.
He's just earned his first F.
That's right. There it is. There it is. I sometimes think that about Man United's record of starting a academy graduate or whatever, not starting, right, but like having
a squad.
in the match day squad, an academy graduate. It's at something crazy like 100 million years now that they've been doing this. And on the one hand, I think that's a good record that the club should be proud of and that they've obviously worked to maintain. It hasn't come from nowhere. And on the other hand, I think you are Man United though, and you have got really good kids. So if any other club had really good kids for a really long time, they might sort of inconsequentially accidentally have this record as well. Do you know what I mean?
It's like when a club comes after your young child.
Yeah,
and it's like, do you want to go to Barnet or do you want to go to Man United? There's only one way that kid is heading, right? So they do have that advantage as well.
It's so true. Yeah, I often think as well, the better decision often is the smaller team, right? Do you think that's the case in football? Do you get more?
It's about playing time, isn't
playing
it?
Time,
I
think it depends what level you're at, right? Because there's
attention.
There's some kids who just immediately hit that level and they're fine.
Yeah.
But there's other kids who probably could hit that level, but not at that point, and then they would probably be better off getting minutes rather than. But then the risk is that you get an injury, you have bad form, and then you never really make it. So
that's true.
Difficult.
What if the facilities are really poor?
Yeah, what about the facilities? They're always talking about the facilities.
They are always about the facilities. What if the facilities are poor?
You go into the showers and suddenly your ability just slides.
That's it, man. Yeah. They talk about the facilities in the same way that estate agents talk about amenities. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I feel like wherever I go, the facilities just are what they are. I've never thought these facilities aren't very good. Imagine being able to demand improved facilities Wow. You had 3 A's. You should be able to demand improved facilities.
But I took that step down because I wasn't quite at that level then.
Maybe that's the
and now
case.
here I am.
Yeah.
Languishing.
You accidentally got academically injured. And now you're
Now
here.
I'm languishing here.
And the facilities were too poor for you to recover. Oh dear.
The toilets here.
They don't have any physios.
The toilets here are rubbish.
Oh, no. They are actually quite bad. Yeah. At the Athletic, the toilets. But there's some lovely ones downstairs by the reception. I use those, particularly when I'm going for a poo. Yeah. Let's have an ad break. Well, there was a good ad break, wasn't it? I hope you heard about a product or service that you would like to. Something was cut. Whew. Anyway, we're not done with Aston Villa yet, and their villa, their big stone mansion, because we've given them a soft, gentle time of it so far. Sam, we've talked about how they've been financially smart, clever. Maybe they've done the right things
To a point.
Monchi has left, though, so it'd be good to sort of understand why and what's happened. I don't really understand why. I mean, it's not that I don't understand. I haven't read about it at all. I haven't made any effort to understand. So if you could explain that would be great. And also, we mentioned at the beginning, they only scored 1 goal in 5 games. They are kind of right now. So, that B question would be, why are they so C question, where do you expect them to finish this season? Because it's right now, it doesn't feel like they're going to be anywhere near the top 4, does it?
No, that was actually 3 questions, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, it was C questions, A, B, C.
And the first one was?
What was the first one? You're right.
Monchi.
What happened with Monchi?
Well, I mean, look.
And also, isn't he's worked with Emery previously, right? So, does this change the status of Emery's role at all? Or I don't know.
I would say probably doesn't change much for Emery.
Yeah.
Monchi, I mean, look, Jacob Tanswell has done a piece on The Athletic to explain it in much more detail and with much more knowledge than I can.
I should have read that.
Yeah, no, it's a good piece. I recommend it.
Is it? Is it good?
Yeah.
Nice one, Jacob.
Monchi, look, from the article, Monchi had spent a bit less time over the summer at Villa's facilities.
Yeah.
Of which they are top facilities.
Yeah, top facilities.
But Monchi may have been... may have even higher standards and may have decided to spend time in some other facilities.
Oh.
Who knows?
Is he maybe going to a different club?
Well, actually, he spent most of his time with a 5th-tier Spanish club, apparently, this summer, trying to save them from liquidation. So, I don't know.
Sort of corporate social responsibility.
I will say this. I used the phrase firefighting in the first segment of the podcast, and I think that is pretty much all Monchi has done for the last 2 years.
Okay.
I personally think that it looks tiring. Yeah, looks tiring. Yeah. I think there's a shelf life on it. How long do you genuinely want to spend firefighting against these limits and settlement agreements with UEFA and all sorts of stuff?
Can I just stop you there? I walked past a fire engine. What's it called?
Fire.
Where they stay?
Fire station.
A fire station the other day, and
was he there?
He was there.
He was there.
They have those sort of not bifold, but many fold doors that open for the big fire engine.
Yeah.
They were mechanically closing, and I was looking in and watching, and all the firefighters were in there, and I was like, "It's the coolest thing." Isn't it funny? You can be the middle-aged man and still think that's cool.
Firefighter is the coolest public service.
It is, right?
By far the best.
Yeah, apart from I don't know, civil servants that work for the transport department. Losers! Hey, let's get them. Get them. What's the worst civil service? Do you think, Sam?
In terms of job enjoyment?
No, as in what's the least cool one?
Oh, council planner.
Yeah.
Council planner.
Town planner, quite fun though. Council planner, not fun.
Someone who has to respond to inquiries about filling in potholes.
Oh my God, yeah.
What about GDPR people?
Oh God.
Can you imagine that?
Oh no. A GDPR... This is a very UK-centric conversation. Do you know what? Let's move on. The fire engine stuff was fun. What were you saying before I interrupted you? He's been firefighting a lot.
I think Monchi's tired. Let's say I would not be surprised if he was a bit tired, and so he's heading off. They've already got their replacement, so they've actually dealt with this quite swiftly. I mean, Jacob was talking about Monchi departing on Monday night, and by Tuesday night, Villa had communicated that Monchi is gone and Roberto Olabe is in. So this is a pretty swift and clearly like quite well planned and structured move. Like this doesn't happen within 24 hours unless it's in the offing clearly. So,
and this guy's worked with Emery before as well, right?
Villa will not be hiring anybody that hasn't worked with Emery before in some capacity.
I see. Okay.
They're all at it. His team of coaches, his team of scouts, they all know him from time in Spain. Even the man who sits above Emery and Alabe, Damien Vidagani, he's also worked with Emery in the past as well.
Right.
So it's very Emery centric at Aston Villa.
I'm starting to see that now.
It's an old school model, probably more akin to Sir Alex Ferguson at Manchester United than anything else you'll find in football right now.
Right.
Generally speaking, you get a sporting director who furnishes a coach with players and goes, off you go, enjoy it. And if you fail, we will be firing you and replacing you with somebody else.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the opposite here at Villa. It's a case of all signings are checked with Emery. If Emery doesn't want the player, they will not be signed.
Right.
Yeah, give him a short list of 10, whittle it down. He picks his favourite. Monchi goes off and tries to negotiate the deal, that sort of thing.
Does that work?
Which could be the reason why their squad looks so bad.
I was going to say, does that not make a mockery of the purpose of the system?
Well, Villa have been very good for 2.5 years.
Mm-hmm.
So, in terms of
players that weren't signed by Emery.
Yeah, and isn't the job of the football director to think in sort of 5 and 10 years rather than 2?
Villa have not been in a position where they can look too far ahead due to all of the juggling that they have to do financially and all of the loopholes that they have to close and all these different PSR problems. And I don't think Villa have ever really been in a position while Emery's been in charge that they can go, in 2 years this would be good. Mm-hmm. It's constantly about we need to make £5 million. Yeah. How do we do it? That sort of thing. That's how close to the line they've been so many times. That's how you end up in a situation where day before deadline day, Douglas Luiz is sent off and in what UEFA determine a swap deal. That's why you end up sending a women's team to yourself.
Yeah.
You don't do that if you're in a healthy position. So it's hard to look ahead when you're having to juggle those kind of things.
Yeah.
But I think it is the record in terms of the players coming in and making it an impact. It has been a little bit lacking. Although I would say, John, and I know you're being somewhat facetious, like the good ones that have been signed under Emery have also just been sold on.
Yeah.
Like he would absolutely have Moussa Diaby in this team if he could, but he had to go.
Yeah.
Right. So
presumably John Duran as well would probably be useful to keep around.
It would have been a good one. Yeah. There's only one senior striker on the books right now, and it's Ollie Watkins, and
is this why they're not scoring any?
Barely
goals?
touched the ball in 5 games. Yeah, I mean, look, Watkins has been quiet, but Watkins also isn't being serviced at all.
Uh-huh.
He's missed a couple of big chances. Fine, it's part and parcel of the game as a striker, but his midfielders aren't finding him at all. Villa are playing very slow and ponderous stuff. Emery called them lazy at the weekend.
Wow.
I think it's the first time he's ever criticised the team in almost 3 years. Like, he doesn't speak like that. If you ever listen to the way Emery speaks about his players, he's constantly pushing them up. He's praising them. Even when reporters were saying, "Oh, you missed out on the Champions League," he would say, "No, we made Europe for the 3rd year in a row."
Yeah.
He would try and change the narrative to be more positive. He would always try and spin things to be more positive.
He loves the facilities.
He's a big fan. He's a big fan. Yeah, but I think it's the first time I've seen him do it. He just went, "We were lazy. We were lazy. Defending was lazy. We were lazy." Said it 3 times.
Wow.
Moving the ball very slow, very ponderously, not connecting to Watkins at all. And we have to talk about Morgan Rogers. He's been really poor.
Right.
It's been really...
He was so exciting last season.
He won Young Player of the Year.
Yeah.
Coming into the season. The ideal time to award that.
Do you think there's something to say for transfer windows as well, of not necessarily the impact that an individual player can make, but the impact that a refresher of the squad can have? Because if you throw a new person in, however good they are, whichever position they're playing in, there's suddenly new competition for the existing players. There's someone new to judge themselves against. There's a bit of there's a different feeling amongst the squad, which I imagine if you get used to that in a football career and then it doesn't happen over a summer, it might feel quite stale as a player.
Yeah, I think so. I think... Again, to reference Sir Alex Ferguson, he was always talking about this. He would change a lot of his squad over a 2 to 3 year period, right? And he was never afraid to sell a star player just to motivate the others, basically. Like, you could be next.
Yeah.
One of those kind of veiled threats. So Villa have definitely suffered a little bit with stagnation and staleness. And there have been certain players in the squad that have been crying out for more competition over the last few years and just haven't received it. Konsa is an impeccable footballer, but he needs pushing. He's been at the same level for about 18 months, and he needs pushing from within to reach that next level. Matty Cash needs competition in order to get better. And Villa didn't have it. And along with this, Emi Martinez effectively spending the summer attempting to engineer a move away, it casts a shadow.
Yeah.
And unfortunately for Villa, the season starts before the transfer window ends.
Yeah.
And it leaked in. So it created a bit of a dark cloud, and I think the players really struggled with it. Ezri Konsa went away on international duty, and he said, the rules, I hate the rules, they've really hurt us.
Right.
It's on their minds. They're literally talking about it 3 weeks into the season.
Yeah, that's interesting. So what are you expecting from them then for the rest of the season? Because it's been, I mean, I don't think they're going to get relegated, right? But they currently are in the relegation positions in the zone.
So Villa are in danger here of letting the season drift so early to a point where it's all about the cups, which would be quite a depressing situation to be in. Yeah. I wouldn't have wanted to be a Tottenham Hotspur fan last season, knowing that the weekend was largely irrelevant and quite depressing. Yeah. It was all about Thursdays. Now, it's obviously good to have something to aim for.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you can't have like 30 dead rubbers. You know, that's just not on. It's not. The meat and bones of the season is Premier League football. Mm-hmm. So it's in danger of drifting that way if this doesn't pick up soon. But we have to acknowledge the fact that, you know, for example, the cup game against Brentford, Villa scored in that one. Nice. Yes, but lost on penalties. So the front four, none of them had played for Villa in 2024.
Yeah.
It's a complete revamp based on the fact that obviously Duran has left, and then obviously in January it was loans. So it was Rashford and Asensio, and it was a complete rework. And the Villa attack that you see in a month won't be like the Villa attack you're looking at right now. You'd ideally have Rodgers perking up, but you'd have Watkins in form, but you'd also have Sancho and Elliott in there, and Evan Guessant, who would be a little bit more acclimatised. So I think we have to accept here that it's just a bit of a weird transitionary period where the attack is revamped and finds its feet.
Yeah.
And it probably goes some way to explaining the lack of goals. That and the fact that Morgan Rodgers has been really bad. Yeah. It's been tough to watch the ball bouncing off him. I was looking at the stats the other day. He's completed 14 passes to Ollie Watkins in 440 minutes, which seems low based on the fact that they play so close together as the forward two. Also, Tielemans has completed 2 passes to Watkins in 315 minutes of football.
Oh dear.
Now, John, Villa spend quite a lot of time moving the ball around patiently in order to open that vertical pass. The whole game plan is that. And if Tielemans has completed 2 passes to Watkins in 300 minutes, then something is clearly failing in that regard.
To what extent do you worry about the fact that Villa are quite predictable? I mean, they're still doing the same sorts of things that they were doing when Emery arrived, right? And we talk about their build-up all the time. It's those deep triangles. You try and work the ball either into the channels or into the half space through the pass that you're talking about there with one of the forwards dropping in. If you're under too much pressure, you work it around through the goalkeeper or one of the pivots into the other triangle on the other side and try again. And I think that we've seen some teams who are very adept at stopping any ball progression coming out of that. Do you worry about that?
Yeah, I mean, like you'd probably say that Brentford feel like one of the weakest 5 or 6 teams in the league, and they found it very easy to stop Villa in the second game. They got an early goal on the counter, and they just sit there blocked out the middle and said, well, I don't think you're going to beat us wide, and we're going to block the middle so you can't pass through us, and you're probably not going to score. And they were right. They were very much right. So it is concerning that it is so repetitive and again, so it's probably stale is the word as well. But there's a gripe here, which is that as much as a lot of this is outside of Emery's control, some of these things the issues they do fall at his door. Like in a team that looks this stale and this slow, is Ian Matson's overlapping pace not one of your biggest threats? And why is Luca Dean? Appreciate he's the experienced head and the better defender in a difficult time, which is an easy thing for a coach to turn to. Is he the right move there when no one else in the team can really beat a man? Would Matson not open up this attack? If you can get Elliott and Sancho in, would that take players away from Morgan Rodgers, who's being double teamed at the moment in central areas and they can't get in the ball in any sort of space? I can't remember the last time I saw Rodgers receive on the half turn and run. Teams don't let him do that. Teams just go, yeah, you can have 70% of the ball. That's fine. No problem. You're not going to hurt us. So there's things that Emery can do here that will unlock more in this Villa team. And he has been a bit slow to open these doors for the team. admittedly during a difficult time in which I'm sure nothing is quite clear. And you do see it sometimes, don't you? See managers like they almost get in their own heads a little bit and they start doing things that they don't usually do, or they can't quite see the wood for the trees because the pressure is too strong.
If you're not scoring goals, then conceding goals becomes an issue. And so if you then start over-optimizing on stopping teams from scoring, then it has a knock-on effect that you can't score goals. And it goes around and becomes vicious. Right?
And so, quite notable here is that Pau Torres, who has always been kind of Emery's lieutenant, he's been the conductor from the back in a possession-based team. He's benched him.
Right.
Like he's just fully benched him for the whole Premier League season so far. He played in the Cup. He'll play against Bologna in the Europa League, I'm sure. But he's gone with Mings. Now, Mings has his separate strengths. He's an incredible box defender. He's so valuable at defending set pieces. Those are important skills to have in the current Premier League climate. But the fact that Emery has gone Dina over Maatsen, Mings over Torres, McGinn on the wing, all of it, it's probably one or two too many, right? Add all of this together and you get that really stale feel to the team where it doesn't have agility, it can't beat a man, it can't open the pitch for itself. It's all of these ingredients into one.
Well, it's a little concerning, I'm going to say. And also, Steve has handily included here that Aston Villa are already 5 points behind the teams that currently occupy 6th to 8th.
That's not that many.
It's not too many.
It's not that many.
But another couple of weekends of struggle, and it starts to, it gets bigger every weekend, basically, doesn't it? It's a little bit of fear in there. Yeah. So, let's see. We'll have you back later in the season. We'll talk more about Aston Villa and see where they are then.
Well, okay.
In the Championship.
Wait, you can get relegated before the season finishes?
I think we could make some exceptions. We've been talking about rule changes on this episode.
We have, it's been a big day of rule changes.
Yeah. When we introduce the draft and my Super League that I endorse, we'll also just put Villa in the Championship.
Imagine if they did have a rule where like the chairman of each club just got a vote on who goes down and the one who gets the most is out. I wonder who would
do you think would who would go
Man
down?
City.
Man City. Everyone
100%.
Yeah, but then what after Man City? Who do you think it would be? The following season?
I think it would just get really vindictive based on success. So I think it would be Man United and Chelsea.
I don't think Man United would be next because Man United are currently not a threat to anyone.
Yeah, I think most clubs would want them in the league.
I think I think it might be Liverpool or Arsenal next. It probably would be about success. Newcastle maybe because of the Gulf State factor.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. Gulf State factor.
What about if you get to vote who gets kicked out of the league, but if you vote for the one that it actually is, you lose half of your revenue for the season.
Wait, hang on. If you vote for the team that actually gets, that's
so that
complicated.
You can't just all vote for the same team,
right? So you'd be hedging.
People are deploying strategic votes.
Well, then Fulham would accidentally go down.
Fulham, you got 4 votes. You're down.
Oh no! We thought they were a safe bet. Well, what a fantastic thought experiment. Anyway, another fantastic thought experiment is called the Ballon d'Or. A terrible thought experiment that should have been stopped before it was ever realised out of someone's brain. Do you know, it was of course the Ballon d'Or yesterday, lads. Something was cut, yes! Wonder what that could be. This time it was my fault. Now, Ousmane Dembele is the best men's player in the world. How exciting. And he has a golden ball. I think that's related to the Ballon d'Or. I'm not sure. Maybe he arrived with a golden ball. Who would know? Dembele is, as I said, the 2025 Ballon d'Or winner in the men's game category, with Aitana Bonmati collecting her 3rd consecutive award in the women's game. Now, that's just rude, isn't it? You've got to let somebody else have a share of the spoils there, surely. One thing we noticed, though, I'll start with you, John. I think actually I noticed it and then I said it to you and you unnoticed it. You said that's
you
not really
made it sound like
true.
there was no Premier League players.
Well, I thought there were very few Premier League nominees or in the top 30, considering it is the richest league in the world that has many of the best players and many of the most expensive players. I just thought it was a bit of a surprise how few of them there were in the top 30. How many were there?
30. Well, there were
30 in the top 30.
Yeah.
According to Steve, there's Salah in 4th,
yeah,
Cole Palmer in 8th, and then you dropped to Alexis McAllister in 22nd in terms of players who were applying their trade in the Premier League last season. He's written that in a very specific way, and do you know why that is?
Why?
Because Victor Gyökeres got 15th.
But not for his work as a Premier League player.
That's true.
Come on, two Premier League players in the top 21 is a bit weird, isn't it?
There's a few more after that. It does actually, it's quite Premier League heavy in the 25 to 30 range.
Sure.
That's the golden range.
Sure.
I was going to include that, but I've been given criticism before, Sam, for writing intros that are too long. So for the sake of brevity.
I don't know how...
But you're right.
Where you see that reflected here. Still very long. But I don't know. I think it's a bit weird.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting because I feel as though if you look at a lot of the players we don't have the list of players here, so
I do.
Yeah, a lot of the players in that list at the top are players.
Who are they, Sam?
Which ones?
The ones at the top.
The very top.
No, just read the top 21.
Dembele, Yamal, Vitinha, Salah, Rafinha, Hakimi, Mbappe, Palmer, Donnarumma, Nuno Mendes, Pedri, Kvara, Kane, Doué, Gyökeres, Vinicius, Lewandowski, McTominay, João Neves, and Lautaro Martinez.
I think, incidentally, JJ's not here, but I think he was actually genuinely upset that McTominay wasn't higher, or maybe even number one.
So my bone of contention would be that Erling Haaland is like 12 places below Scott McTominay.
Right? He had quite a poor season relative to his own success measure, though, didn't he, last season, I guess, right?
You've just tapped into what is the crux of the entire Ballon d'Or argument. What does it even mean?
Yes.
What is it?
What is it? Let me tell you this, right? I got a message from, it was my birthday the other day.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. You've always got to pause when you say that. It was my thank you. Anyway, I got a voice message from my sister-in-law and the kids. And they sang me a nice song, and it was very lovely. And then I got individual little messages from the kids. And the one from my nephew, who is 12 years old, and with whom I very rarely talk about football. We certainly don't talk about like club football. Occasionally a player name will come up, right? He said to me, "Oh, can you convince my mum that I can stay up to watch the Ballon d'Or?" And I didn't even know it was the Ballon d'Or. I think, John, I told you the story. You said you didn't even really know until the day it was the Ballon d'Or. Yeah. We work here. I mean, we should know. That's a failing. Let's be honest. That's a failing.
We're bad at our jobs.
We're bad at our jobs.
It's always on a Monday as well. So
it's always.
You should be on red alert every Monday for a possible Ballon d'Or ceremony.
One of these 52 Mondays is a Ballon d'Or.
Could be any of
that. It could be.
Could be.
But I know that we know. You always read these things. The statistics show that young people favour individual players, and there was that big news story around Cristiano Ronaldo moving to Juventus all those years ago, and how Real Madrid's social media following dropped, and Juventus's grew by however many million. But I don't think I'd ever really had an experience like that in real life before, where I realised that a child who I don't talk about football to was not only aware that the Ballon d'Or was on that night, but wanted to watch it.
It's terrible to watch as well.
It's so boring.
I've been to 2 Ballon d'Or ceremonies.
Have you?
Yes.
Were they dull?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Big time. Yeah.
They started announcing the results 4 hours before the final.
Because there's so many players on the shortlist that they don't have time.
Do they do it in order? I genuinely
They do it in
never really
tranches.
watched.
They do like in 30 to 25. Here are the names, and then like an hour later they'll tap back in for the next 5. That sort of thing.
Good lord,
it's awful. It's awful. Yeah, and my 2 experiences of Ballon d'Or were very, very different consecutive years. The first year I had actually I'm going to call them good tickets, but obviously they're not tickets.
Right.
But I was in the.
What are they if they're not tickets?
Well, they're like passes, right?
Passes.
But it's a different level of passes.
Yeah.
But I had a pass to go and sit in the ceremony in the auditorium.
Right.
In a wonderful Parisian building with like red carpets and like gold gilded stuff. It was genuinely beautiful.
Did you wear a suit?
I did.
Lovely.
I did wear a suit. I'll show you a picture later. And it was I was in the ceremony. It was good, but like obviously like all ceremonies like that, bit long.
Yeah.
Bit gratuitous.
Sure.
Very French.
Yep.
The guy that did the song after the French won the World Cup. Remember that one? The rap that was dedicated to all the players, and he put all of their names in the.
I don't remember it.
Okay.
Did he do the same with all of the Ballon d'Or?
No. So he got on stage and he sung that song and like said thank you to all the players and stuff. And Didier Deschamps was in like the second row and he was like, yeah, that kind of thing.
Nice.
It was. And then the second time I went, I was stuck in like the bowels of the of the building, like with all the other reporters.
Not actually in the room.
No, I wasn't in the ceremony that time. So
you went to the building to watch it on a TV.
Well, I was down below, and obviously there was a mix zone, so the players would then have their awards, and they would come down. They do interviews.
So you're like one of the people that, if it was the Titanic, you definitely would have drowned.
Yes,
You're in the
for
engine
sure.
room.
Yes, for sure. But bear in mind,
Just checking.
But no, because
In that situation, who gets on the lifeboats
because
first?
they're bringing the footballers down into the engine room
Oh.
to be interviewed by us.
Oh, that's interesting.
So
So no, you wouldn't be. Who would you be? Maybe you would be the dancing people, and then occasionally
It'd be the waiters.
the
right?
waiters.
That's what it is.
Yeah,
Yes,
Yeah.
I would be a waiter.
You-
That was the night I asked.
and people would say, "Well, that waiter's tall,
Oh,
but he's well dressed.
His suit is
His
fantastic.
suit is wonderful."
Suit.
Yeah.
So my story from that ceremony was I was in the rest of world mixed pack, I guess. There was certain stations
That
for the
sounds like
cameras.
a Warhammer thing.
But where they had like specific TV stations set up, and the players went round one by one.
Yeah.
So certain prominent TV stations from different places in the world had a spot, and then all the rest of you can all stand over there, and there's like 30 of you, and you get 3 questions, and that's it. I waded to the front of the queue with my immense height, and stood there at the rope. And as Virgil van Dijk walked past, I asked all of the 3 questions that any of us could have, and all 3 of them were about how he smelt. And the looks I got from the guys that had travelled very far.
Oh no!
Dearie me.
Did he smell good?
So there was a rumour going around that he smells amazing.
Right. I've heard that.
Because Troy Deeney said it on TalkSport.
Right.
So then...
That's probably where I heard it.
Shortly after... Yes, you probably do.
Yeah.
You listen to TalkSport all the time.
I mean, non-stop.
Non-stop.
24/7.
You in the van constantly.
Yeah, big time.
And so I interviewed Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain not long after that happened. And so I asked Oxlade-Chamberlain, is that true?
Yeah.
And he said he hadn't really noticed that Van Dijk had a particular scent. So I thought, well, this is conflicting information. Any good reporter would go to the man himself. And I just so happened to be in front of him. And I just thought, I'm just going to ask him.
Do you smell
I
good?
said, well, Troy Deeney said you smell great, but Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain disagreed. What's the answer?
What did he say?
He said, I like to smell nice, which I think is normal.
Right.
It was basically his very taken aback and surprised response.
Sure. It's like one of those questions where if they take it in the spirit it was intended, it's a really fun exchange. And if they take it seriously, then it's bad.
I think he was just super confused, which I think is fair.
Yeah, it is fair.
But I know he's only 28th in this list.
Right, so he's on the list.
So he probably doesn't smell that good, does he?
No, I wouldn't have thought so, because I think the list is an ordering of people based on the quality
on Musk.
of their
It's on
smell.
Musk for sure.
Yeah.
But I think to come back to the actual question that we were asked 20 minutes ago.
We do have to wrap up though, because unfortunately we've run out of time.
If you look at almost all of those players, they're incredibly technical players who most of whom are playing for the best club in their league, right? And I think that says a lot about what is being voted on, right? It's
It's
great.
nothing to do with smell.
I think it's great that Ousmane Dembele has won this award.
Sure.
He feels like a really deserving winner for a number of reasons, not least because he's not Ronaldo or Messi who've won it 100 times each anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But had a fantastic second half of the season, starting from pretty much the beginning of the calendar year. So I guess is that the voting period?
Not anymore. They changed it. The good thing about Ballon D'Or is they always try and confuse you. So for years it was a calendar year award, and no one understood that at all. And now they've changed it to just the previous
but
season.
either way,
and everyone thinks it's a calendar year.
He was a big part of what I think PSG's season was.
Right.
He scored some important goals in the Champions League final.
Yeah.
Champions League run.
There was the surprise factor as well.
Yeah,
the comeback factor.
Exactly. The fact that he was, playing years ago for Rennes and was fantastic, and everyone had him as a Ballon d'Or winner back then.
Sure.
And then he hadn't quite lived up to that potential.
He's also executing a ridiculously difficult role as a full-on false nine,
reinvented,
basically.
right?
And if you're a good false nine, Jesus, that's tough. There's like 10 in the history of football that have been any good at it. And Firmino is and Messi are a part of that. And so for Dembele to execute that role in that team, it's seriously difficult. So he deserves the credit because he's got the goals and assists to go with it.
Yeah. So it's a very feel-good award, that one. But the rest of the list is kind of, and this is why last season was so weird with Rodri getting it, right? Because it felt as though it was moving against this idea that actually what we want is technical ballers, which, I think it's fine to have an award of like, which players do you think are the most fun players, like outside of the context of like what they've done. And obviously that goes into it.
That's called the Streets Won't Forget Award, yes.
Yeah, right. And I think...
Yannick Bolasie won it.
But I think that the reason why the Premier League doesn't have a huge amount of representation, I mean, the names on there is Salah, who had an incredible season balling out for Liverpool, Cole Palmer, who was often the difference maker for Chelsea. And then you drop down to like Alexis McAllister, who immediately is not that kind of player, right? So I think it does represent a movement in Premier League profiles towards the fact that a lot of these players now have to be like incredibly physical. They have to be, they have to have a huge amount of stamina, and the games don't allow themselves as much for incredible technicality. That's the reality of Premier League football. And I think that the result is that you see a lot more of those awards going to players outside of the Premier League. And that's fine. But I think it does say something about the way that football has headed in the Premier League in particular.
You mentioned earlier about the game where if we all could relegate teams from the league by voting, but if you voted for them and they went down, your revenue would be halved. So you would split your votes. Yeah. Do you not get a bit of a vibe from that from a top 30? Like the voters here that have to pick 3 players, with so many voters worldwide and producing a top 30, you are just going to get a bunch of players.
They just do it on votes then. So you get 3 votes.
You get 3 votes and it's awarded by points. So you get like 5, 3 and 1 basically for your first, second and third choice. And one person from each country, I believe, is responsible for the vote. And it's always been the case. So that's how prominent newspaper journalist. It's been Henry Winter in this country for a long time. Has been responsible for our vote, the people's vote. And if you create that situation and then you actually publish a top 30, Haaland, Wirtz, Van Dijk, Rice, Dumfries, all these guys. I mean, like, how many votes do you reckon they got? Or how many points do you think they got? Was it all a roughly similar amount? Probably, because a large percentage of the points are going to be attributed to Dembele, Yamal, Salah, Rafinha, Vitinha.
Yeah. So just hypothetically, you think it could be like 100, 99, 98, and then we're down to talking 15,
2,
14.
1, like genuinely. I think my big takeaway is publishing 30 names is nonsense. Genuinely nonsense. It's just going to create a load of noise at the bottom.
Yeah, show us the numbers.
They do eventually produce the numbers, but after a little while, I think. But I just think call it a top 5. Call it a top 5.
I got a little hot under the collar there.
Yeah.
Ahead of, but then they do show the numbers.
Yeah, they do. Yeah,
do the top 5. Yeah, and make the event shorter. Put it on earlier because it's children that want to watch it.
It's called the Ballon D'Or, isn't it? It's not called the Ballon d'Ors. Like, just do the number 1.
The Ballon
Be like,
d'Or.
the person who's won is this.
Hey,
that's it.
Yeah.
But
that's not how it works.
300 people's names.
Also, don't put me in the engine room again, please.
We've got to go now because of you.